Hi everyone, today I want to talk about Cryo. Because when the devs say that Cryo is all about preservation, I raised an eyebrow. At first, preservation sounds simple enough, right? Ice freezes things, it keeps them intact, it stops time from destroying it. But now that we have seen the strange Cryo rift near the Tsaritsa statue, I do not think the question is just what Cryo can freeze. I think the real question is, what is Cryo trying to preserve? So today, I want to look at Cryo through vision stories, the rift beneath Snezhnaya, and why the Tsaritsa may be using preservation to hold back the fate of an entire nation. I think the easiest way to look at Cryo as preservation is to go through some character stories, specifically why certain vision wielders receive cryovisions in the first place. So let's start with the one we have all lost our 50-50 to before, Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi was an herb gatherer who got caught in the crossfire between adepti and demons. After being gravely injured as she lay there dying, all she wanted was to freeze time and go on living happily again. Her fear of death, her desperation to survive, and her yearning to see her family again all coalesced into ice. And that is how she received her cryovision. What sticks out to me from this is that her final wish was specifically to freeze time. Next, we have Shenhe. Her story is about a fate being forced onto her that wasn't meant for her. When Shenhe was a child, her mother passed away and her father became obsessed with bringing her back. Eventually, he found a forbidden technique called fate transference, which would allow a dead person to return if a living person was offered as a sacrifice. And the person he chose was Shenhe. He brought her into a cave, summoned what her story describes as a horrifying black Seelie, and left her there to be consumed. But Shenhe did not accept that ending. Even though she was only a child, she fought that creature for days and nights, because she did not want to die. And during that life or death battle, her cryovision appeared. Shenhe's cryovision does not appear because she wants revenge, or because she has some grand ambition. It appears at the exact moment where her life is being forced into a fate that wasn't meant for her. Her father meant to sacrifice her, and she was supposed to die in that cave. But Cryo became the thing that tipped the balance in her favor and reopened a path to the future that was meant for her. Now for the next character, he works well as a mirror for the Tsaritsa's position, but on a human level. After killing his abusive foster parents and freeing the other children, Wriothesley does not run from what he did. He pleads guilty, rejects the name that family gave him, chooses the name Wriothesley, and is sent to the fortress of Meropide. And when he arrives at the fortress for registration, this is when he discovers his cryovision. That timing is really important, because that is the moment where the world could have reduced him to one thing, a criminal being locked away beneath the sea. But Wriothesley does not disappear into that fate. He hides the vision, survives the fortress's ways, learns how the system works, and eventually helps change the system from the inside out. In doing so, he helps turn the fortress into a place where people can rebuild their lives instead of simply being thrown away. Now, obviously, vision stories do not prove the exact mechanics of an archon's power, but they do give us a smaller human-level way to understand what Cryo is really about. So with Chi-Chi, Cryo appears at the edge of death around a wish to freeze time and keep living. With Shenhe, Cryo preserves someone from an imposed fate. And with Wriothesley, Cryo preserves someone at the edge of being swallowed by a system. So Cryo's preservation does not seem to be only about keeping something cold or untouched. It seems to appear when something is about to be lost, overwritten, or reduced to an ending someone refuses to accept. And if these Cryo characters show us smaller versions of preservation through their stories, then the Tsaritsa may be the Archon level version of those same ideas. Only in her case, it's not about one person. It may be about the entire nation or even the entire world. That is why the rift near the Archon statue feels so important to me. Because if Cryo is preservation, then maybe the apocalyptic space is not just some random alternate realm. Maybe it's what Cryo is preserving Snezhnaya from. And if that is true, then the Tsaritsa may be hiding Snezhnaya's fate under the ice. Now back to Chi-Chi's dying wish to freeze time, because preservation is always connected to time in some way. If something is being preserved, then it is being protected from change. It is being held in a certain state before time can fully take it somewhere else. That does not mean Cryo is the same thing as the power of time, and I don't think Cryo is suddenly heavily like Istaroth coded or anything like that. But I do think Cryo may interact with time in a very specific way. It may not freely move through time or rewrite the past, but it may be able to hold a moment in place. That is what happens with Chi-Chi on a smaller scale. Her wish to freeze time does not undo the tragedy that happened to her. She doesn't return to her normal life, and it just simply preserves her at the edge of death, stuck between the life she wanted to keep and the ending that was about to claim her. And if Cryo can do that to a person, then maybe the Tsaritsa can do something similar to an entire nation. Because in Genshin, fate is not treated like a normal metaphor. Again and again, the story frames fate like something that's written into the world system, so if a nation has an ending written for it, that ending still has to arrive somewhere in time. And Snezhnaya has a chosen fate written into the world system. Then freezing that fate would mean holding the nation in the moment before the ending becomes final. That's why preservation through Cryo may be able to open these rifts. It may be showing us another point in Snezhnaya's timeline, a future that should have arrived, or a fate that should already be real. And if the Tsaritsa is using Cryo to preserve Snezhnaya, then maybe she's not freezing the nation because she wants it to stay the same forever. She might be freezing the moment before collapse, keeping Snezhnaya suspended in the present, while the catastrophe meant for it waits beneath the snow. And with that in mind, the rift beneath the snow becomes much more important, because if Cryo can hold something in place before an ending fully arrives, then the apocalyptic space near the Tsaritsa's statue may be showing us the ending Snezhnaya has been held back from. That rift shows us apocalyptic destruction. It feels like we are stepping into the aftermath of something that should have consumed the nation. So maybe the rift is not just a random alternate realm. Maybe it is the fate of Snezhnaya made visible, the version of the nation that should exist right now if the Tsaritsa had not frozen that fate in place. And that puts the Tsaritsa in a terrible position from the very start. Archons exist inside Celestia's system. Their authority comes from a world order tied to the heavenly principles. And as Nahida tells us, the heavenly principles want to preserve humanity. But what happens when the system that wants to preserve humanity is also the thing guiding a nation towards collapse? That is where my train of thought goes when I think about Snezhnaya now. The Tsaritsa became the Cryo Archon either during the Khaenri'ah Cataclysm or shortly thereafter. And after seeing what happened to Khaenri'ah, it makes me wonder if the Cataclysm revealed more than just one nation's punishment. So what if Snezhnaya was next in line? What if it was meant to collapse alongside Khaenri'ah or become the next nation destroyed by the same system? And what if the Tsaritsa used Cryo to stop that catastrophe from fully arriving? Not to solve the problem forever, but to buy enough time to gather the Gnosis, prepare her rebellion, and overthrow the system before that system can destroy the people she's supposed to protect. I think this may be the clearest hint we have ever gotten about what the Tsaritsa is actually doing. She may be preserving an entire reality in space and time, holding Snezhnaya in place before its chosen fate can finally catch up to it. So maybe all these years, the Tsaritsa has been keeping Snezhnaya's fate frozen beneath the ice. Maybe she's using Cryo to delay the inevitable under the current system in hopes of changing that system to save humanity as a whole. But that is where I'm landing for now. Do you think the Cryo Rift is showing us Snezhnaya's chosen fate, or do you think it is something else entirely? And if Cryo really is preservation, what do you think that Tsaritsa has been preserving all of this time? If you enjoy lore, deep dives, theories, and build guides, subscribe because I've got a lot more coming. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.